genuinely, out of Tarantino's movies, I think this is probably my favorite. Or it's ranked at the very top with Kill Bill Volume 1.
Jesus. I really don't like the Kill Bills. I just don't.
I like them mainly for their over-the-top action. That's what I like.
Okay. But to
really
me,
only
Kill
part
Bill
one. Part two
is
kind of meh.
like, because we haven't gotten to this. I'm pretty sure we touched upon this last time, but I've joked around about Tarantino on the podcast before, just kind of because he's easy to kind of poke fun at, because he's a fucking weirdo who loves feet and he's ugly as hell, and he's also just like. But I think my biggest complaint about Tarantino, because obviously he's a very good filmmaker, he's certainly a great screenwriter, he's a good director, he's a terrible actor, but the longer he's gone into his career, the less likely he's going to put himself in his movies. So that's good, because if you look at, like, he's awful in From Dusk Till Dawn. He's really bad in that.
And he's terrible in Death Proof, I will say.
Okay, I haven't seen that one, but I believe you. I mean, he's bad in Pulp Fiction, but it's like a one-scene thing. Mm-hmm. I want to say he says the N-word like 10 times in that scene, though, because he's Quentin Tarantino.
And he's also bad in Django Unchained as like an Australian.
That was like isn't he like with Tom Savini?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he shows up with Tom Savini and then they end up blowing up from dynamite.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah, I remember the bad Australian accent, yeah. But anyways, the biggest kind of issue I have with Tarantino, and I'm talking about this during maybe the best scene he's ever directed, which is kind of funny, but I'm just like, I'm just kind of out on Tarantino, because I feel like he's mostly just homaging things that he likes, and that's what I really like about this movie, because even though there's these tributes to this like late 60s and even the films of the late 60s, because you see that clip that goes on way too long showing all the Nazi flamethrower movies and like all that stuff. Like, even though there's those aspects to this movie truly feels like it's its own thing, and I feel like a lot of his other more recent movies haven't felt like that. Django, to me, was just a bad spaghetti western. Maybe not bad. Maybe bad's a strong word, but like it certainly didn't elevate it beyond being just like a spaghetti western homage to me.
Well, and we spoke about this briefly in the first recording. This is, in my opinion, Tarantino's only movie that feels truly grounded in reality and centered around
up to a certain point, because the end is very pure. It's pure fantasy, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah, and I mean,
because Inglourious Bastards it gets really heightened at the end, because Inglourious Bastards basically has the same ending as this, because it's just like you just flip a switch and we're no longer recreating history. Mm-hmm. But I would say that movie overall is a bit more heightened throughout than this movie.
Yeah, or even like some of his movies that are set in like a normal reality, like Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, stuff like that. They just don't feel as real as this somehow. This just feels so natural, especially like the way you have Brad Pitt and DiCaprio playing off each other. They genuinely feel like real friends.
Oh yeah,
and by the end of this movie, you're almost sad to have the movie end, because you're like, I want to see this friendship continue on for at least a little bit longer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
For me, this is like a standout Tarantino movie, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I would probably have this as my second or third favorite. I'd have to see Inglourious Bastards again. My favorite is certainly Pulp Fiction. I think that's legitimately a great movie. But I think the kind of the mistake that we have, I would say it's a mistake anyways, is we kind of all think of, or I guess Tarantino has just, over time, he's just become like kind of an art director, like he's become a Fincher, or insert name of really popular but also like incredibly critically acclaimed director, like a Scorsese. I mean, he's not on the level of Scorsese. Only about 2 or 3 people in history probably are, but he's like kind of in there. And not that he doesn't have the skill, but I just don't view him that same way. I view him as like I think he's the world's greatest exploitation filmmaker.
I
think he's the best possible version of Lucio Fulci. And every now and then he'll make a movie that isn't an exploitation film like this, and you realize it's really good. But I think his bread and butter is that Django Unchained, tribute to the spaghetti western.
Well, and the thing about Tarantino is, I mean, he's spoken about it a million times, but I mean, he grew up in LA. He worked at a
the video
movie
store,
right? And I think
so he's seen everything. I mean,
you're right.
Like,
but I think Tarantino, at the end of the day, is a director who wanted to make sure that he had his own like section in a video store. You know what I mean? Like, if you walk into a video store, you have like a Tarantino-esque section, or like Tarantino.
Well, it's funny you say that, because Tarantino, as much as any modern filmmaker I can think of, inspired like knockoffs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, especially, I don't think the movies he's doing now are being ripped off, but like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, those spawned a decade
Countless
of like kind of
knockoff
rip-offs.
movies.